So since there are around 35 participants, so we can start. So a very good evening to everyone, ladies and gentlemen, who are presented here. So let me introduce myself. I'm Anuruddha Peris, a student of METHM 5th batch at the University of Colombo. Can everyone hear me again?
Yes, Anuruddha.
Okay.
Yes,
okay, thank you. So I'm representing also from the METHM batch 5th batch at the Colombo University. I'm the business development manager for Authenticity Sri Lanka, representing the France and Belgium markets. So I would like to extend a warm welcome to highly reputed members of the tourism and hospitality industry who are actually present from various reputed organizations here. So we are so privileged to have you to witness a very important technical session that connects the industry and the academia. And it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Rajarata Silva, the founding coordinator to postgraduate diploma leading to masters in tourism, economics and hotel management at the University of Colombo. Further, I would like to welcome all the participants and my beloved colleagues who are actually presented here. When it comes to the tourism and the hospitality sector, it is necessary that we continuously look and search for new information and innovative ideas to improve the tourism business. And we do research for that purpose. So it is also important to look for best practices built on the experience and explore more. Based on that background, we developed this program in which we present our findings to the industry, so that we can validate the process with the time. As a result, the academic findings are always gathered. The main objective behind these industry validation sessions is to bridge the gaps between the tourism, hospitality industry and the academia. Once again, I would like to welcome you all to this third industry validation session conducted by the tourism study programs. On this occasion, I would like to highlight, as usual, the tourism study program conducted by the University of Colombo. It starts from the, many of you might know, it starts from the diploma in travel and tourism economics and hotel management. If you are having prior experience in the tourism business, you can directly enroll in the postgraduate diploma in tourism economics study program and continue your master's degree as this extended to master's degree. So these programs are internationally recognized and provide graduates with competitive edge when searching for employment or whenever they want to climb for a higher position in the corporate ladder. Now I would like to invite Professor Rajarata Silva to address the gathering. He was the founding coordinator of tourism study programs and the president of the Alumni Association of Tourism, Economics and Hotel Management, and the chairman of the International Tourism Leaders Summit and International Tourism Research Conference. Professor, over to you.
Thank you very much and very good evening, everyone. I always believe that our students' empirical research finding must be presented to the industry's considerations. That is where we can say that our study program is a very industry interactive and application-oriented learning approach. So I must be very sincerely thankful to Edina, Williams, and Amila for being today presenters through their evidence-based research finding. So I hope that they will reveal the most important research finding and the possible policy measures and management strategies as a recommendation for the industry to rethink and use those information for their own decision making. So therefore, without taking much time, I must be sincerely grateful to my students, Edina and Amal, and also Anuruddha for moderating this event. I hope that as an outcome of this webinar, the industry will find some valuable information from the particular two research areas. First one is whether Sri Lanka is an attractive destination for the high-end revisitors to Sri Lanka. The other topic is more towards on the accommodation industry. So I hope that all two presenters will provide the valuable information to the participants, and they will realize that this webinar would be very, very useful for their enhancement of their knowledge and practical applications. So thank you very much and wish you all the best and very productive evening, and looking forward to see next 4th industry validation sessions will be coming as a consequent series of webinar events organized by the students and the alumni of Tourism Economics and Hospitality Management. Thank you very much and enjoy with this valuable evening with the knowledge. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable insights, which is always appreciated, and your thoughts are always valuable for us. Let's get started with the today's first technical session, which is about European tourists' willingness to return to Sri Lanka for their vacation. So let me introduce first presenter, which is Mrs. Edina Wiligas, is a lecturer at the Rajarata University of Sri Lanka, specializing in the German language. She was a student of METHM 5th batch. She will be presenting her findings on the research topic, which is an analysis of European tourist revisit intention. And I like to mention here, her supervisor was Mr. Sampath Siriwardana, Senior Lecturer of Tourism Study Program at the University of Colombo. Without taking much time, I would like to invite Edina to present her findings. Edina, over to you.
Thank you, Anuruddha. Am I audible to you?
Yes, you are, Edina.
Okay, let me share my presentation. So before starting the presentation, good evening to everyone. And I would like to thank Professor Suranga for giving this opportunity for me to present my findings. So today I'll be talking about whether European tourists are willing to come back to Sri Lanka. So in this presentation, I will be covering the background information and my main objectives of the study, and what are the findings I could found from my study, and then I will be giving some examples for the best practices that are currently practicing in other countries, and finally I would like to make some recommendation to attract revisit or secure the repeat visits to Sri Lanka from the European countries. So repeat tourists are actually an important segment in terms of cost advantages, and also fewer resources are needed to maintain this market than creating a new market. And securing repeat visitation is an important measure to sustain the competitiveness of the destination. So studying the behavior of repeat tourists would reveal important market information for a tourist destination to maintain competitive edge. So as you all know, Germany, France, and UK are among the top source market which generate tourists to Sri Lanka. So that I have selected these 3 markets for this study. And basically I examined whether the tourists from these countries are willing to visit to Sri Lanka, and what type of travel behavior, what patterns of travel behavior those European tourists have, and what is the level of their intention, and also what are the factors that determine their travel decision to come back to Sri Lanka. And let me explain the findings of this study. So first I would give you the current trends and patterns of the European tourists who are coming to Sri Lanka. So in terms of gender, the majority of tourists who are coming to Sri Lanka from these countries are female tourists, as a percentage that is about 66%. And according to the age category, most of the tourists are above 50 years old, as a percentage that is about 55%. And then I also examined why they come to Sri Lanka, what are the purpose that they are coming to Sri Lanka. So number 1 is pleasure and vacation. Number 2, visiting friends and relatives. Number 3, health purposes. And also I could find that many retired tourists visit Sri Lanka for health purposes, as a percentage that is about 32%. And also another significant finding of this study is that many European female tourists are coming to Sri Lanka by their own. That means they are solo travelers. So as a percentage, that is about 30%. And again, there is another significant finding that I could found that the tourists from these countries, the majority of the tourists, they have previously visited Sri Lanka. So we can say that these countries, the tourists from these countries are a loyal customer base. And then I examined whether they are or what is their level of revisiting Sri Lanka. So here I have got some of their thoughts, and also I could find out that they are in an agree level to revisit to Sri Lanka. And then I wanted to check what factors determine their travel decision to come back to Sri Lanka. So I could find out that their attitudes towards the country and subjective norm, that means what other people says about the country, and also behavioral control, that means time, money, and other factors. Also, most importantly, overall satisfaction determines their revisit intention. So the most influencing factor is the satisfaction. That means if we want to make tourists from these countries to come back to Sri Lanka, we should make satisfied. And for that, the destination image will leads to satisfaction. Satisfaction will leads to the revisit intention. And from the qualitative analysis, and from the qualitative analysis, I could find out what are the reasons why people are coming back to Sri Lanka. So I have actually done word frequency. They have talked about Sri Lanka. They have talked about their opinion, and from the analysis, I could find out that most of the people have used the word local friends. That is about 12%. And also they have talked about the word Sri Lankan people, that is about 9%. And they have talked about Ayurveda, that is about 7%. And they have talked about Sri Lankan culture, that is as a word frequency, that is about 6%. And then I have examined why people are not, maybe what are the things that they have talked about Sri Lanka negatively. So these are the reasons that they are not willing to come back to Sri Lanka. The first factor is sexual and other harassments. And the second factor is the expensiveness and long distance. And the third factor is the financial constraints and family commitments. And the fourth factor is security of the country. So these are the things that they have talked negatively about the country. So those are the actually findings of my study. And then I would like to give you some global best practices, what other people what other countries have practiced, the good practices. So I will start with Aruba, that is one of the island country in Caribbean Sea, and more than half of its arrivals are repeat visitors. So what they have do is they have used for their promotional campaigns, for the themes, as a theme, they have used their culture and citizens as the main value proposition. So, and also the local focused content creates for the destination has performed significantly better than other themed content. So actually this is, I think from the qualitative analysis also, I said that many tourists have talked about Sri Lanka, and many people have talked about the culture of the Sri Lanka and the people people in Sri Lanka. So that one of the good practice that also we can apply into our Sri Lankan tourism industry. And another example I would like to give you, that is the Maldives. Maldives is the first country which initiated a loyalty program for returning visitors. So that is based on actually the frequency and duration of the visit, and they would be giving discounts and also the fast track immigration upon arrival and departure. So I think that is one of the good practice that is practiced by Maldives to secure the repeat visitors. And also, Jamaica is another country where they have higher revisit rate. About 40% of the tourists arriving to Jamaica are repeat tourists. And so what they have do is when they are doing their promotional campaigns, they always focus on repeat tourists, and they are always telling stories. So these are some of the promotional campaigns that they have introduced: come back to Sri Lanka, make it Jamaica again. So whenever they are promoting their country, they always used to say the stories. So here also you can see some of their contents that they have used. So always they are telling a story. So whenever you read those stories, if you have been to Jamaica, you might feel going back there again. So that is another best practice conducted by Jamaica. And another program is recognizing loyal tourists, which is practicing in Barbados. And also here also we can see a higher repeat visitor rate, that is about 39%. And they have a loyal visitor club of repeat guests, and they are recognizing the loyal tourists. So those are the some of global best practices that the other tourist destinations are using for their to attract more repeat visitors or repeat guests. And then with my findings and these best practices, I would like to move with my recommendation. So as I told you previously, satisfaction is the most influencing factor that determines the travel decision of tourists to come back to Sri Lanka. So that it is important that we improve the tourist satisfaction. So that we can do by offering good value for their travel money, improving safety and security of the country, and let the tourist engage in cultural activities. And also I explain that what other people says is matters when people are the people making decision to come back to Sri Lanka. So it is important that we encourage the existing European tourists to share their experiences with their friends, family, and relatives, and also encourage them to publish their views. And from the previous findings, I told you that most of the female tourists are solo travelers. So, and also I have told you that one of the reason they might not come back to Sri Lanka is the sexual harassments and the other harassments. So it is important that we create a safe environment, especially for the solo female tourists, if we want to make tourists from these countries to come back to Sri Lanka. And also from the findings, I could find out that many tourists are coming to Sri Lanka for health purposes. And Sri Lanka has a great potential to promote as a wellness destination. So if we can, it is recommended that we promote Sri Lanka as a wellness destination for the European tourist. And this is especially for the tourists who are coming for health purposes. And also from the analysis, I could find out that Ayurveda is one of the most used words when they are when the tourists are telling their opinion of coming back to Sri Lanka. So, and the age-wise, most of tourists are above 50 years old. So it is recommended that Sri Lanka could develop packages for European, especially for senior tourists, including Ayurveda. And so as as in the global best practices also, I have mentioned that using people and culture is one of the good practice. And here also from the findings that I have told you that tourists are mostly using the words like Sri Lankan culture, people and local friends. So it is recommended that we emphasize more on Sri Lankan culture and people when promoting Sri Lankan tourism in European countries. And since the culture and the people are important, we can give more opportunities for the tourists to get to know about Sri Lankan culture and to participate in cultural events in Sri Lanka. And therefore, we can organize possible cultural events so that they can engage in the activities. And also, we can make available or publish different stories of different tourists related to Sri Lankan culture. So with that, I have come to the end of my presentation. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you very much, Edina. There are interesting findings, and thank you for sharing those valuable recommendations for the industry also. It is also good to know those best practices which is used by the other destinations with regard to your subject. So that is very interesting. So before going ahead with the Q&A from the audience, I would like to ask you, so what aspects the industry should focus to bring more repeat tourists to tourists from European countries?
So as I also explained in my presentation as well, what matters is making the existing guest satisfied. That is the most crucial factor, that we exceed the expectation of the existing tourists so that they will go back to their country and they will share their experience with the others, and that will bring more tourists and create a new market as well. The creating or the making them satisfied will bring them back to Sri Lanka. So that is the crucial factor that we have to address.
Thank you, Edina, for your reply. Very interesting to know. Before I go ahead with the next session, I would like to ask, there any concerns or questions from the audience? Is there it's time for it.
Excuse me, my name is Heshan. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Heshan. Yeah, we can hear you. Heshan. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a very nice presentation and it was very valuable. Thank you, Edina, for the presentation. I'd like to ask you a question, but I don't know whether she has really checked. Is there a seasonality factor? Because we know that seasonality matters in Sri Lanka. We have different seasons. So does it matter for the European market as well? Did you fathom that? I don't know whether we have checked that in the research. Is there an influence of that, Edina?
Yes, Heshan, thank you for your comment. Actually, from this study, I did not check whether the seasonality matters for their revisit intention, but I have done this research during the season period. So from November to January, I collected the information. So that I could tell you that the people who are coming from this period of time, and they will be coming back to Sri Lanka. So that I cannot tell exactly whether they are coming in the other season as well, but they have mentioned that they will come back to Sri Lanka. So since I have collected the information in the high season time, I think they will coming back again in the same period of time.
Thank you, Edina. Thank you for your answer.
Welcome.
Is there any other questions from the audience?
Hello, good evening. I have questions. Previous we mentioned the financial constraints about the Sri Lanka. So as you all know, the world recession also going on all over the world. Can I know, I want to know, what are the financial constraints to the coming to Sri Lanka to the Europeans? So sometimes we, as you all know, about the Sri Lankan rupees they can stay with nicely in the season, no other thing. What are the constraints about the financial situation about the European and Sri Lanka? So can you elaborate more, Miss?
Yes, thank you for your question. Actually, when I ask about what you are thinking about coming back to Sri Lanka, so many have also mentioned that the financial constraint that they face might alter their decision to come back to Sri Lanka. So that is a personal thing, not with the country. But personally, when they have financial constraints and the family commitments, both together make them make it difficult to come back to Sri Lanka. Actually, that is what I gained from there. I hope you got the answer.
Yeah, okay, Miss. Thanks.
Thank you for that question again. Any other questions from the audience before I move into? I would like to thank also for that question from Hishan. Actually, can be also another research findings in future for someone or for research topics to find the seasonalities for revisit. And also the previous question was about their financial constraint. That can be also another research findings in future. So I guess there's no more other questions from the audience. So let me go for the second technical session on the day. So it's about managing international conferences in Sri Lanka. So let me introduce the second presenter, Mr. Amila Indika, a lecturer of University College of Rathmalana, Institute of Vocational Technology. He will be presenting the findings on the research topic, which is a success factors in managing international conferences in Sri Lanka. So his supervisor was Mr. Nalin Gunasekara, lecturer from the tourism study programs at the University of Colombo. I now cordially invite Mr. Amila to present his findings of the research. Amila, is over to you. Amila, is over to you.
Many thanks, Anuruddha. Good evening, everybody. Many thanks, Anuruddha. Good evening to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Surangara Silva for providing me this opportunity to present my research findings in front of this very interesting virtual gathering. My topic is that can Sri Lanka be an attractive destination for international conferences? The basic focus of my research was to identify critical success factors in managing international conferences of Sri Lanka. When we can use those critical success factors when we are conducting conferences properly, we can develop a high quality conference product. That high quality conference product may lead to attract the international conference market to Sri Lanka. I would like to move to the structure of my presentation. That first, I will discuss briefly about the background of my research. I will just touch about that event tourism and the importance of events in the tourism industry, and also that the importance of conferences in tourism industry and the conference tourism, and also that especially the MICE tourism in Sri Lanka and what are the main issues related with MICE tourism in Sri Lanka. Then I move to my objectives, and I will discuss only that my major findings of this study, and then I move to discuss about some selected global best practices from different parts of the world. Those are related with the major findings of this study as well. Finally, based on that, the minor findings of my research, I would like to make certain recommendations in order to develop the conference industry of Sri Lanka, especially in the context of conference tourism. We all know that events are very important in tourism sector. It's a vital thing. It's a vital thing for tourism, and also it's a high motivator for tourism. And there's the increasing importance of destination competitiveness in the globe when we consider about the events. That events are considered as one of the fastest growing forms of leisure and tourism phenomena in the world as well. Then, when we look from that the tourism destination perspective, that the events are considered as one of the success factors for successful development of tourism destinations, and it is considered as an important element of destination system as well. Among the events that the conference is one of the major types of events that is very important in the tourism industry, and there's a growing demand for all kind of conferences throughout the world. That it is very clear from some particular figures and some kind of forecasting done by that International Congress and Conference Association. According to that particular leading body, one of the leading bodies in the conference industry of the world, that this is what this is that they say actually that they say that the number of meetings doubles in every 10 years in normal conditions, not during the COVID conditions. And the convention tourism, there is a kind of issue when we do consider about that the research and the academia related with convention tourism. Until recently, there was a little attention from the researchers on convention tourism as well. Then when we move to that the Sri Lankan scenario that you can see the image, that image is the flyer, that a marketing flyer developed by that Sri Lanka Convention Bureau in order to promote Sri Lanka as a conference or the MICE destination, basically. That you can see that the major term or that the statement or something like that they have used, meeting Sri Lanka and the fastest growing market. That may be good, that the fastest growing market is good for marketing sense. When you try to attract your customers or that the tourists, convention tourists in this context, that is important to show them that we are developing, we are good. But when it comes to that, the research perspective, that is questionable. Based on the facts, we are doing the research based on the facts. When it comes to the marketing, it may be something different. When we do consider about that the facts, that is the story is different. That Sri Lanka may not be the fastest growing MICE market in the world or any part, even with our competitors such as Malaysia or something like that, or Indonesia or something like that as well. That is Sri Lanka's position in the international meeting destination ranking in 2017. It was 71st place in the globe and 18th place in Asia Pacific as well. That Sri Lanka got the same position in 2018 as well. Later that we had to go down because of that the stat tax, and then after you know that the corona crisis is there. And however, Sri Lanka has given a special emphasis on development of MICE tourism, promoting MICE tourism to attract more MICE events to Sri Lanka, the meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. That you know that the Sri Lanka Convention Bureau has been established to promote Sri Lanka as a MICE destination and the large number of promotion event campaigns. Those are conducted in Sri Lanka and overseas in order to attract the MICE market. However, there is an issue when we consider about the development of this sector in comparison with other sectors of tourism, especially all of us know that from 2009 to 2019, there was very good development of the tourism sector in Sri Lanka. But the conference tourism and also that the MICE, when we take in a broad term, that it did not show a healthy development. There is a decline of the percentage of tourist arrivals, out of the total arrivals. There was a decline of the percentage of tourist arrivals for conferences and meetings after 2009, based on that the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority's annual statistical reports. And we know that Sri Lanka have a considerable number of facilities for small and medium-sized conferences, but those may not be properly used, maybe underutilized, and that may be a kind of issue that the potentials of conference tourism or the conferences in order to develop this tourism sector in Sri Lanka may not have been properly used. One reason behind that may be lack of emphasis on the critical success factors of conventions. That is the major concern of my research. I would like to move to my objectives. The major objective of the study was to analyze the critical success factors in managing international conferences of Sri Lanka. There were three specific objectives of my research. The first one was to examine critical success factors in managing international conferences in tourism industry of Sri Lanka. The second one was analyze such factors influential in determining the success of international conferences, that the individual factors in fact on the success of conferences was calculated using statistical methods. And the final objective was to provide the recommendations for the development of most appropriate policies, strategies in order to conduct that successful conferences in Sri Lanka. Then I would like to discuss about the major findings of my study, that as a result of the findings of this study, I was able to found 6 important success factors and 1 less important success factor for the success of conferences in international conferences in Sri Lanka. The less important success factor was leadership, because that in the results of the regression analysis, the figure was less than 2 points. Because of that, it was less important success factor. The other success factors, that the 6 is there, those were found as important critical success factors for international conferences in Sri Lanka. At the top, there is a kind of a pattern in the hierarchy of that usefulness or that the impactfulness of those factors for the conferences. At the top, we can see 2 human factors. That is, the most important one is stakeholder commitment and attitude. The second important one is the availability of human resources. Then those 2 human factors are followed by 3 technical factors. The third one, that is marketing and promotion. The fourth one is financial management. The fifth one is techniques of project management. Then at the bottom we can see that 2 human factors again. Those are that cooperation and communication among the stakeholders and the leadership. Then I would like to discuss about some selected examples related with major four findings of my study. The first one was that stakeholder commitment and attitude. Stakeholder commitment and attitude is a very, very important thing. According to the study, it was the most important one. The best practice example is from that the good place to work for all summit, that is a concurrent event, that is an annual event in USA, that event team basically work on 8 commitment. They work on 8 commitment, and also that they have developed a specific value among their team, that they have developed a team with the high level of bondage, high level of identity. When there is a high level of identity and also that high level of the bondage, it can be called a community. They work as a kind of a community, and they fully representing that the scope of the roles and the responsibilities within that the working committee as well. The second factor identified from my research was competent human resources. We know that the competent human resources are very, very important to develop a high quality conference product. That example comes from that the UK, that particular program was called that the People First World Host Program. It was conducted just before that the London Olympic Games, which was staged in 2012. That program was used to give specific training for 200,000 hospitality and tourism employees in UK. Those people were well competent in hospitality and tourism, but they wanted to provide specific training in order to cater for Olympic tourists. Olympic tourists are coming from the different countries. They have different cultural background. How to cater for the people who are coming from the different backgrounds in order to take an experience at the largest global sport event or the festival. That is the specific thing, that specific training was given to deliver high quality product. Then the marketing and promotion was identified as the third most important success factor. The example of best practice is from the United States, the New York City, that is a kind of a promotion event which was conducted by JetBlue Airlines. The event was branded as Ultimate Icebreaker. That the JetBlue, they wanted to promote their new direct flights from New York to Palm Springs. What they did something unusual. When it comes to marketing, doing some unusual things may grab the attention. That is a very, very important thing. Sometimes we may use the term guerrilla marketing as well. The concept should be something unusual, something unique. Then you can attract the market. You can get the attention from the people as well. Then what they did actually, that they place numbers of summer accessories inside 6 by 6 feet ice block that they asked people to chip away the ice block and take their prizes as well. Then it provided immersive experience for the participants, not only for the participants, even for that, not only for the active participants, but also for that the viewers. It provides some kind of unique immersive experience as well. It is something can be called that the gamifying experience, which is very important, because that the modern day customers and the modern day people, they want to participate actively. When they are getting some experience, they are not passive. They want to be active. That is an important concern. And they combine this the gamifying experience in the context of the promotion with intensive social media campaign as well. This particular event was, that marketing campaign was conducted with the help of the Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitor Bureau. Then I would like to move to the fourth critical success factor, that is financial management. My best practice is from London Olympic Games, which is considered as one of the most successful Olympic Games in the history. That it was a giga event. It was the giga event. And also that it is very important to mention that the most of the Olympic Games in the history, those are financial failures for host countries when we search Olympic literature. However, that the London Olympic game was different because that they had a sustainable financial plan. Even now that they are generating some kind of financial benefits out of that event. After 9 years, they have hosted the event. Then it generated 176 million US dollars after the event. And they did it in a kind of a sustainable financial manner, and the other kind of sustainable practices were applied as well. The Olympic Park was built on a 200-hectare, mostly toxic wasteland. Then after the event, that land was converted to the place of 11,000 homes and other utility buildings as well. And also that they provide that a diverse long-term benefits in highly successful planning. The most of the Olympic venues they built, those are dynamic but temporary venues. After the event, that particular venues were converted for other community usages. Some converted to some kind of that the economic usages, and also that the welfare usages as well. That none of those were wasting money. That is a very important concern. Then I would like to make some recommendations based on my research. That it was found some human factors such as that the attitude and commitment, and also that the availability of the human resources, competent human resources, those are more important than technical factors of event management. And the proper application of technical factors, those should not be undermined as well. Those are important as well. That the technical factors such as the techniques of project management, or that the marketing and promotion and the financial management, those are important as well. Then the employees of the event teams or the conference teams, attitude and commitment for hard working is another very important thing. And stakeholder quality of intention to do their duties better. That is a very, very important quality. When you have that particular quality, that always you are trying to develop your product again and again. When you are doing conferences, once you did it, and then next time, although you have done it correctly and done it successfully, that next time you wanted to do better than the previous time. That is helping to the continuous growth. And the readiness of the staff or the event team to do what they are expected to do. That is again very important thing for the high level of development as well. And the event team or the staff or the employees, they should are ready to go out their way to help the clients for their special request. That is an important concern, that when you do it, that there will be a high level of product satisfaction among the customers. And you can improve the image of your professional conference organization as well. And also that the professional conference organizers, they try to provide the job satisfaction for their employees. It will help to maintain higher level of motivation. That motivation may lead to high level of performance levels of the employees as well. The professional conference organizers, they should maintain a competent group of professional force that in Sri Lanka, it is very, very important for professionalization of the MICE industry or the professionalization of the event industry. That professionalization should be something, I don't tell that it is not there, but it should be something more than that. It should be something at up to the international level. And also that the professional conference organizers should try to provide more interesting and stimulating duties for their employees that may help to minimize the labor turnover. Labor turnover is a kind of issue in this particular industry as well. Then another very important thing is the proper recruitment and selection procedure. When there is a proper recruitment and selection procedure that may ensure proper job fit of the employees as well. Then allow the employees to learn and improve performance. And it is important to provide training for their career development as well. You know that in these days that there is a kind of a conversion from the physical events to the virtual events. When we are going to organize that the virtual conferences, that training may be very important. Training may be very important, how to handle the technology, how to develop highly immersive experiences using the modern technology is a vital thing. That kind of training may be important for the people or the employees to survive in the industry as well. And the development of brand image for the conference is another vital things that brand image can attract the clients. That is a very important thing. Then implementation of marketing innovations based on the results of related marketing research can be recommended as another very important thing, that the marketing innovation is something new, something unique, something unique. It should not be a normal thing. It should be something unique, something different. That even you can use that the technology for that in the context of the virtual conferences as well, that how to develop a high level of engaging audience. Then another very important thing is that the delivering brand promise to the customers successfully. That most of the times customers are looking at the brand promise, what they can get out of that particular conference. Then provide them a brand promise may be very important thing. And it is very important to ensure allocation of funding and the resources for the event. The funding, what kind of funding agencies are there? That whether it is a client is hiring you to conduct the event, or that other funding agencies are there, the sponsors are there, handling those things are very important aspect related with the international conference management in Sri Lanka. And the training in financial management for the employees who are handling related tasks is another very important thing. There should be proper training. That we know that some conference organizing companies, there may be some people who are doing those tasks but may not have proper training in financial management. And there should be clearly defined goals and objectives and develop project integration among the different parts of the event project as well. Then another very important thing is that the technical requirements, those technical requirements, those should be specified at the start of the project, and those will meet at the project execution phase as well. Then there should be some kind of unique activities in the international conferences. Then when you can add some kind of unique activities that may add some kind of new value to your conference, it may distinguish your product from the products of your competitors as well. Then inform stakeholder groups about the progress of the project that is related with cooperation. Cooperation among the stakeholders is a very, very important thing. That should be considered, that when there is a high level of cooperation, that may help to do the business successfully on continuous basis with the help of the different stakeholders. And develop an organizational culture is very important thing. That organizational culture may have different aspects. That the organizational culture should be there in the professional conference organization body that may help the employees or motivate the employees to convey their ideas, views, thoughts, suggestions, all of those. Share those things with their colleagues and give those kind of feedbacks to their supervisors as well. Then there should be some level of freedom for the leader of the project to make decisions as well when we consider about that the leadership concerns. And the professional conference organizer, the main person who is handling the event, different terms may be used in the industry. Sometimes the person may be called that the conference secretary, or that the PCO, or the chief PCO, or something like that. That person should be able to put the good of the event team before its own interests. That is another very important recommendation can be given. That's all I can basically share with you. Thank you very much for listening to my findings and listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Amila, for the insightful presentation. Let me mention that Amila's supervisor was Dr. Nalin Gunasekara, was a lecturer tourism study program at the University of Colombo. Before I move on to Q&A from the audience, it was very interesting, those recommendations you have given to the industry based on your findings, and also those best practices, the information on those detailed best practices from the other destinations. Let me ask you, Amila, how do you see an increasing trend of virtual conferences? It may continue even in the post-COVID situation. What kind of impact it may have on conference of MICE tourism, event tourism in industry in Sri Lanka? Amila, you heard me?
Yes, thank you, Anirudh, for asking that. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Amila. You can answer.
Can you hear me, Anirudh?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, there may be some kind of connection issue. Sorry for that. Okay. Thank you for your question. And I think that we should look at that particular issue from a perspective that may mainly consider about what will happen, and also that what are the opportunities it may create if there are, and what kind of threats it may raise for that the MICE tourism, conference tourism, or event tourism in Sri Lanka as well. And generally, it is believed by lots of experts and that the world leading organizations, even in future, that virtual conferences will be a trend, because that the mainly owners of the conferences may consider about the cost reduction in future as well, and also that they have opportunity to reach a global audience, large global audience than the physical conferences. Because of those factors, they may try to do it. Will continue. However, that it may have kind of a negative impact on the MICE industry, because that all of us know that the virtual conferences or other virtual events may not provide, they don't provide the business opportunities for some leading stakeholders of the industry. That the event venues, they may not get business opportunities, the hotels they don't have, the caterers they don't have, the transportation providers they don't have, even event utility providers, that others, they may not have that kind of opportunity as well. That is the kind of a negative in fact. However, that a positive thing may be there as well, that even the physical conferences may continue, because that as pointed out by that some expert like that Professor Serapin, that coming together and join with others is a fundamental human need. It is a fundamental human need. Because of that, even just after that, the COVID, people may like to get together. It may jeer or that it may cause to have some kind of revival, some level of revival of the conference industry and also that the event industry as well. People always need that kind of a human touch as well. That's why that even during the curfew times that people have lots of informal gatherings, some informal, maybe illegal, we can tell that those kind of illegal gatherings, so they're not in only in Sri Lanka, but also in UK as well. There was some research done about those the informal gatherings. That be a kind of a positive thing for certain extent. And when it comes that the perspective of that the event industry, it may provide a kind of opportunity for the industry as well. That opportunity, I don't tell that it may be profitable like that the physical conferences, but the certain things we have to adopt to the certain things what we can get. That is important thing, that the virtual conferences have a huge market. It has a huge market that according to that Grant View research, they have conducted a research about the future of the virtual event market. According to their research in 2020, the size of the market was that 94.04 billion US dollars, and it will increase more than 500 billion US dollars in 2008. In Asia has the highest growth rate. Annual growth rate is 26%. That the event industry can cater for that market as well. I think that the collaboration between the event industry or the conference industry with the IT sector of Sri Lanka IT sector is, I think, relatively it's good, and also that the television production sector it will yield good results as well. Sometimes, however, that there are issues that still research is at the infant level when it comes to that the profitability of the virtual events as well. I do know some few companies, at least in Sri Lanka, that they are doing it nicely. They are in the path. They are in the path correctly. That may be a kind of opportunity for the event industry as well, because that there is a huge global market. We have a relatively strong IT sector that we can collaborate with that IT sector and the television production sector as well. However, that the profitability may be an issue for certain events. Certain events may not be possible to replace. Certain physical ones may not be possible to replace by that the virtual ones, but conferences can be replaced quite easily. It's one side is basically that not good for that the tourism industry, but the available opportunity should be grabbed. It should be grabbed. That is my view about this particular issue.
Thank you, Amila. That was a very detailed answer. That was interesting to know those post-COVID, how we move on. Before we conclude today's session, I would like to ask, is there any concerns or questions from the audience? If there are, it's time for it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have question. Good evening. I have a question. The leadership, how to promote to Sri Lankan in international conference event. So critical success factor has he mentioned the leadership. How is it applicable to Sri Lankan international conference to the leadership?
Yeah.
The leadership aspect of politics or whatever religious, whatever. Can you elaborate to the leadership point?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your question. That according to my research, that leadership was found the less important factor, not a very important factor, according to my research. That the leadership is important for some conferences, that it may differ sometimes, that the type of, that the different types of conferences are there, that the certain leadership qualities, that if leader can manage the others quite nicely, certain leadership qualities may be important as well, that if leader have a good knowledge about that field, that may be helpful as well. I think that it is important to have a kind of a democratic leadership may help to get the insights of the others of the conference team, and it may help to take some kind of more good decisions based on that the conventional ideas. That may be important as well. However, that according to research, that leadership was less important factor. Okay.
Is there a specific role model to Sri Lanka, the leadership to the conference event? Is there a role model to the leadership to Sri Lanka international
that
culture?
It is very difficult to say. No, it is that when it comes to leadership, I think that is it's very difficult to tell that this is a role model of leadership for Sri Lanka. I think that because that even when it comes to the one leader, that based on the situations, that what kind of leadership style the leader may apply should be changed as well. When it comes to that certain situations, sometimes the crisis situations or something like that, sometimes the leader may need to apply some kind of authoritative leadership, and also that the democratic leadership is good as well if the leader is working with the high quality or the high skilled team, that he may be using some different method as well. But basically that what I think that the most important leadership style is maybe important one is actually the democratic leadership, that not only this context, so other contexts as well. However, that based on situations, there may be certain deviations. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Amila. Thank you, Fernando, for your questions also. Is there any other questions? Since we are running out of time as per the schedule. Is there any other questions from the audience? Okay, looks like there's no other questions to Amila with regard to his research findings. Okay, we have come to the end of the session today. We had two technical sessions. So we hope that you had a fruitful sessions from the both presentations. Thank you very much for your participation and for your valuable time invested on this day for around 1 hour. And we look forward to seeing you all participants for the next session, which is the 4th industry validation session. Good evening to everyone, and have a good weekend, and see you on the 4th validation session next week. Thank you very much.